All right, we are live on Facebook, which is, I guess, like being live on TV back in the old days. We're delighted you're with us. I'm Stephen Shelley.
Teresa Scopa. It's so good to be here, everybody. And we're here with Andrew Fretwell, our dear friend and guide, soul companion. Felt such a deep connection to Andrew just when we logged on a minute ago. And so excited and grateful to be here with you, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Teresa. Really happy to be here. And yeah, as you said, to connect in with family. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, we're so fortunate right now I know there's been lots of talks of internet blackouts and phone blackouts, and we're really fortunate to be connected in this way because I feel like our soul family is truly around the world and around the universe, and we're so, we're so fortunate to have been able to find each other like this. So in such blessed connections. And we recorded a live video yesterday where we talked about our personal experiences with you, because we want in this series to be able to mostly kind of jump into where we are and have conversations about the world. And in our old interview series, we did a lot of background info, but we wanted to share a little bit about our background. But for those who didn't see it, Stephen and I have both worked with Andrew as a guide and a Jinkies facilitator, and have had a few sessions with him that were so strong and profound in terms of touching exactly what we needed to see in divine messages and growth and where we are in our soul's journey. So this is when we thought about this series, Andrew was one of the first people we thought of, because we know how tuned in you are to individuals and the collective where we're all at as a humanity right now. So really grateful to be with you, Andrew. And just spoke with Andrew about taking a few minutes. Did you want to say anything else?
Okay. Yeah, Andrew was talking with us earlier about maybe wanting to kind of do a little tuning in before we began the conversation. So Andrew, why don't we hand it over to you?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, let's just do a little bit of tuning into the body. I'm a big fan of tuning into the body, like dropping down from the head, and just dropping down into the heart space, into the belly space, and just turning the senses inside, just turning inside. And just very conscious that all of us have this inner presence inside of us, this soul consciousness that is light, is sound, is pure love, is a essence drop of source. And it's always present, it's always reporting on our dreams. It's sometimes, in some traditions, it's called the inner witness, but in my tradition, we call it the soul, the ling, the soul vessel. So just looking inside, and you can see thoughts. You can feel sensations, you might have certain feelings, but you also have a lot of space inside, a lot of internal space. So just open up that sense of space. Maybe take a few breaths and just release the body so you can have more inner space. So when we look within, we're exploring our energy body, we're exploring our soul, we're exploring that which is energetic, that which we can't touch. And when we let go of this physical body, that's what will be left, is this essence self, this energetic soul self. So just allow that to be present, and just like to invite into the collective, into this meeting with Teresa and Stephen, just, the right questions, to be of service to the whole, to be of the service to humanity at this time. And to be of service to myself, to service to Stephen and to Teresa and their family, and everyone on the call. So we have to get this balance right between serving ourselves, serving the collective, and serving our relationships. It's a delicate balance. And just take one more deep breath. Maybe make a sound, let the jaw drop. And let's open our eyes again and let's stay connected to that space. That's the main thing I'm interested in, Ashley, is taking that meditation space and bringing it into daily life, you know, because that's where we get hung up, you know. It's probably everyone can relate to this, and what actually got me on my path was I had a very powerful experience at 21, you know, really heart-opening experience of the soul, experience of unconditional love, but I couldn't maintain it. And if anything, the world and spirituality became these two separate things. And so I've spent the last part of my life really trying to dig down into what that's all about and to integrate these two things together. And I'm happy to report that I've made some progress.
All right.
Yeah. So there's hope for all of us, you know. But anyway. So.
Yeah, that's great. Well, what a fertile beginning. There's lots of little threads there. The thread of service, the thread of bringing that kind of clear essence into day-to-day life. Yeah. Do you have an inkling? I mean,
go ahead.
Please.
I was going to, you know, we didn't want to get into a lot of background, but I love what you just shared about having that experience and then where you've gone from there. Maybe you could share just a little bit more before we kind of get into questions about right now, just a little bit about where you, that experience. And I think people can really relate to that. I know that I had, when I began my spiritual path, or as you would say, or in a conscious way, I had kind of a very, one of those kind of like bright experiences. And then, yes, I agree that since then it's been about integrating and like actually experiencing that on a day-to-day basis. And maybe you can talk just a little bit about how you've become, and maybe you were at that moment, or you always were, Andrew, but how you've become so in touch with individuals at a soul level and with this process of awakening in others, because I know that you're dedicated to helping people awaken through self-love and understanding themselves as multidimensional beings. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you've come to where you are. A little bit.
Yes, sure.
I know it could be a long conversation.
Sure. No, it's fine. And so the first experience was basically in the Indian system, you know, like it was, I met a Shaktipat guru. His name was Swami Muktananda. He's quite famous in America, actually. He was one of the first Indian teachers to come, and he came to the West Coast a lot, you know. So I actually went up to an ashram where he was, one of his ashrams, actually. It was my yoga teacher who invited me there. I had no idea what it was. And, you know, I was just new to yoga as well. You know, just yoga for me was just some physical exercise. There wasn't really a spiritual aspect to it. But I was very close to my yoga teacher, and she said, "Oh, why don't you come up I have to give a talk, you know, and please come up, you know." So I said, "Okay, sure." So I went up, not realizing what would happen, you know. And the guru wasn't even there, you know, this Indian guru wasn't even there. And so, yeah, I wondered what I'd walked into, you know, because you know what Indian ashrams are like. Maybe you don't, I don't know, but they're full of incense and people waving So I went and sat down on the floor, you know, and in this place where she was going to give a talk. And as soon as I sat down, I had this sort of explosion in my heart. You know, it was like just like a yeah, just like the heart completely opening, you know, and tears running down my face, you know, an experience of pure love, you know, just pure love, pure unconditional love. I mean, it was a love that's way beyond anything on the personal level, you know. And I sort of stayed in that state for about 3 days and 3 nights, you know, and then I spent the next 10 years of my life trying to recreate it, you know, by serving the guru, serving the teacher, you know. But actually what happened for me personally, I mean, I'm not saying it happened for everyone, but for me personally, what happened was it created a split for me between my worldly life. I was a professional musician at the time, and I was a bit of a rock and roller, you know. So it sort of created a split, and guitar.
Nice.
Guitar. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I played, you know, I was, and then I just saw this split between, you know, I would go to the ashram and I would chant, I would do my meditation, I would get very high. And then I would go back into the world, you know, and sometimes I'd have to run from the ashram to a gig, you know, and it's full of smoke. These are in the days when there was no smoking ban. So, you know, I walk into this place full of smoke, put my guitar on and start playing, you know. So it was pretty amazing, you know. And then I guess the big shift for me happened. I mean, I went through many things like that, but the main shift that happened for me was when I moved to the Taoist approach, when, you know, I met Mantak Chia I think in the early 80s, you know, and before that I got involved with macrobiotics. And so that was my journey, you know. I mean, to cut a long story short, I learned how to get back into my body rather than just taking my energy up the spine, which a lot of the Indian systems are really just like taking you up and getting you as high as you can, like opening up the highest chakras, you know. And in the Tao, we do it step by step. We actually we build the foundation first, you know, and especially working with the sexual energy and the emotional energy and getting that integrated in with the heart, you know, with our souls. And so along the way, the big challenge of my life, I would say, where my shadow came up the most was in relationships, you know, especially with the opposite sex. And so it was that journey of really going into my shadow in relationships and, you know, like really seeing that I had so much anger inside of me, really deep anger, which I now know was related to my childhood, where I was verbally abused as a child, and not blaming anyone, but I know what it is now, and, you know, I've resolved it, and, you know, now I can just laugh about it. But at the time, it was very, very painful. And so it's been that integration process, you know, and that's it, basically. And so, you know, now I'm interested in sort of supporting other people and letting people know that it doesn't have to be so long-winded, you know, because I think there are shortcuts we can take, you know, and part of my mission is to especially teach people about chi cultivation, because that's for me is the middle ground, you know, chi cultivation, cultivating a relationship with the energy of life, you know. So I hope that's enough of an introduction.
You mentioned chi. I took kung fu a bunch of years ago, and we used to go racing. We used to chi, train harder, you know.
I mean, martial arts is just one aspect. Martial arts is just one aspect of chi cultivation. But when I talk about chi cultivation, I'm really talking about, like, how did our bodies get here? You know, like, how did our souls actually, you know, our majestic souls get down into this tiny little body? And honestly, when we're in the womb, you know, we have a memory, you know, when our souls are in the womb, we actually have a memory all the way back to where we come from, to the source. But as soon as we cross that veil, as soon as we're born, it's like a veil comes down. And we get disconnected, you know, and it's meant to be that way because otherwise we wouldn't go out and do things and learn, you know. But my mission these days is sharing with people how to get back to that, you know, to the unification, going back to the source, basically, and how to bring it into the body here and now, rather than just waiting till we die to do that. So the Taoists were really into that. They wanted to experience heaven, what the Taoists call early heaven, or the soul, before the moment of death, you know, so that you can be conscious in that process. And so that's been my journey, and it's the most exciting journey you could ever go on. It's an incredible journey. And most people's experience of the soul is a little bit vague for most people. It's a little bit distant. There's not a lot of trust of it, for example. So I'm really, really, really interested in sharing these alchemical formulas, these Taoist alchemical formulas for immortality, which start at the body level, go into the emotional level, and then they start to approach the soul level. So for the Taoists, you can't go to the soul straight away. You have to work with the body first, the emotions, the thoughts. So these three bodies, physical, emotional, mental, and then you open up the space to the soul. But the soul is always present, that's the thing to remember, and so the Taoists have this practice called the inner smile, which we did a little bit at the beginning, which is this witness consciousness. Most people are aware of it through Eckhart Tolle's teachings, this power of the now, this presence. So that is the soul. But for most people, they don't experience the soul as something trustworthy or reliable or having will, because our outer personality seems to have more will. And I'm here to tell you it doesn't. The soul has a lot more, but we're unconscious of it. So part of my work is to open up the pathways, get people conscious of those pathways, and you can do it. But you need a method. And so Tao alchemy is that method for me.
Nice. Yeah. Well, you talked. There's a lot of material there, but I think one thing you mentioned about kind of going into your own shadow, and so maybe we could kind of bring in the kind of current environment in the world in somehow in discussing this shadow. But one thing that we've noticed in ourselves and in many, many other people kind of walking a spiritual path is that there's this inclination where we want to kind of jump and like bypass. That's the common word, bypass, but we'll say another word, but like kind of leap over that work of dealing with the shadow and suddenly sort of, and it kind of, imagine oneself as enlightened or ascended, and feel like that I can kind of go around that somehow. I'd love to hear you talk about that, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about like the shadow that's kind of being brought to light now in the world. Kind of what you see happening with that on a more collective level, because I think that's a topic of great interest to many people.
Yeah, I think it's a great subject. So first, even though I've used that word before myself, shadow, I sort of prefer the word resistance. It feels like a better word to me. It feels like a less judgmental word,
Yeah.
So, our soul is always flowing. It's always in the flow. That's one of the things about the life force. It flows. Talking of flow.
Keep going.
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Yeah, so it's perfect. So small children flow, there's a flow to them, and the life is always changing. Nature is change. It's always changing, right? So our resistance basically is that part of us that doesn't allow the flow in life. That's all it is. It's because as we grew up, we learned certain patterns of chi from our parents, from experiences, and we learned not to trust the flow of life. In some traditions we call this trauma, right? And so it's a pattern of chi that gets trapped and it gets stuck, and it's and then what happens is, as probably you guys have noticed, oftentimes when you get into a relationship or you get into a business relationship even, or these patterns, they don't really come up when we're on our own. They actually get triggered by others or by the outer environment, and actually what's triggering them is life itself. Life wants us to flow more. Life wants us to be free, and So and then we get into this other thing that's really important to understand about shadow work or resistance work. Most people's, as far as I can see, especially people when they first start on the path, they engage the positive aspects of the personality as being spiritual.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying about that? And so then they create this, and then they create this sort of, I can't explain it. It's like a pseudo spirituality, because it's like you just identify with positive aspects of yourself as being spiritual. And in my experience, the soul is completely neutral. This gets into Taoist cosmology, right? So underlying everything is this feeling of unity. So we have a yin and a yang arising out of unity. This is the Taoist cosmology. So underneath everything is this sense of unity. We could say the soul, right? I mean, it's deeper than that, but the soul is the first connection that we have as human beings. The soul is like the intermediary between our personality and the greater self. We could say the greater cosmic self, the collective self, if you like, you know. And when I say collective self, I don't mean Jungian archetype. I mean the whole cosmos, basically. Okay. So this is beyond Jungian archetypes. I mean, this is much, much deeper, right? The soul is deeper than the Jungian archetypes. Okay. Much deeper. Okay. So this is the main work that we need to become aware of, is we shouldn't really take sides when it comes to our personality. This is one of the main teachings. So we shouldn't get too attached to our positive sides, and we shouldn't get too attached to fighting, or, you know, and this is where we get into the collective as well, of like, you know, trying to force the shadow up. And so, and this is really hard for us because our personality wants to do it, you know. So this is really important to understand, that we have this deep love inside of us, this deep love. This is the original feeling of our soul, this deep love. And so what we need to do is we need to just trust that love. We need to trust that that's who we are. And we also need to trust that our personality is yin and yang, whether it's, you know, some people have a more yang expression, you know, in their resistance. Like, so for example, anger or frustration is a more yang aspect of resistance. And then say something like depression or sadness or fear is a more yin, right? And so this is one of the other missions I have, is to educate people not to see emotions as purely emotions, but see them as chi patterns, because that's what they are. They're just chi patterns. Like, I mean, once you understand that it's just energy, it's chi that's got stuck in a pattern. And it's freeing. It's incredibly freeing once you get that. But you've got to have a neutral place to observe that. You have to have that sense of presence and that sense inside of you of something that never changes. So in the Taoist, we call that the soul, the Ling, and it's your North Star. So it's like your presence. Your presence is always there. It's like when we dream, our presence sees the dream. And we forget that. We forget how powerful that presence is. And we have to cultivate it. We have to make that presence more real, you know. And so that's my approach with the so-called resistance, is not to actually engage it too much, you know, not to fight it, you know, but to really just open ourselves and just trust. A lot what I do is I tell people, like, what was, like Teresa, for you, for example, you had this very powerful experience of your heart opening, you know, similar to me, right? So you hold that as truth. You say, okay, that is the truth. Right? And what most people do is when they have an experience like that, for example, in yoga or something, they go to yoga and they feel amazing, right? And what they do then is they compare that to when they don't feel amazing. And they say, oh, you know, I feel really good when I do my yoga, but I don't feel good when I go here. And that's a big mistake. That's a huge mistake that everyone does. What we should be doing is we should be claiming that those states of peace and love that we experience, not as a feeling state, not as an ego state, but as a truth, as truth. You know, because that's truth. But we get into a trap, you know, and we minimize it. You know, we say, oh, I feel like shit now. But just because you feel like shit, does it take away that experience? No, it doesn't take it away, right? So we have to shift our will. And we have to claim that part of ourselves. And trust me, I had to do a lot of work to do that. But it's getting easier now. It's getting easier for all of us to do that, you know, to start claiming that state, you know. And so in my own life, you know, because I've had a lot of change in my life, a lot of change, you know, an incredible amount of change. I mean, I won't get into the details, but just a lot of change and a lot of plans not going the way I thought they should go, you know, according to what I thought, you know.
Yeah.
So after a while, you start, you know, if you're really serious about your spiritual practice, if you're really serious, you start to identify that which doesn't change within all that change. And that is the key thing, I think. And this is what we should talk about as well with this collective, what's happening now, because I see a lot of people trying to fight the darkness, you know, trying to point out all these conspiracy theories and everything. And it's a doomed thing to try and fight that, or to try and, it's great to be informed, but once we're informed, we should just come straight back to our neutral presence and just love it, because that's how we change. If we put our energy there, or if we put our attention there, this 5G, vaccines, and all these things that are just in the collective, and, I understand the ego gets so concerned about that, but honestly, the way we're going to shift that is not through fighting it, is not through pointing out that it's happening. That's not how we're going to shift it, in my experience. It's like a relationship. Do you fix your partner by blaming them?
Yes.
Does that solve anything? Does that solve anything? No, it doesn't, right? You just create a loop, and it goes on and on and on and on, right?
Yes.
But if you hold presence, right? You hold presence for your partner. If you've got that ability, that can shift something very powerfully. So we have to see the power of our presence, the power of our love, the power of who we really are. We have to claim it. We have to really claim it.
Yeah,
I think I answered both for you, the collective and the personal.
Yeah.
There is a kind of delusion that that my relationship to life is purely about will and action and activity and doing. And we're taught that. That's sort of like what we're told, and that's the world, that's how it runs. But there does seem to be maybe the shift, if we're kind of talking about this title, the shift in a very, very ways, maybe the shift is instead of having our focus on all of that activity and doing, it's really more about kind of being in harmony with that which is always there, always present, always clear and pristine, and that kind of flow that's just always arriving. But that requires a kind of a really potent, or a real trust, a real faith, and maybe that's kind of the tipping point we're at now, where hopefully maybe we fall into that more and more and more.
Yeah, I would say it's about the intention. It's about because there's nothing wrong with working, with activity. Okay, there's nothing wrong with activity. Like, we're in the postnatal world. For the Taoists, the postnatal is after birth, right? So when we come into this dimension, we're in the dimension of yin and yang. So we have to use our energy. We have to. We can't avoid that, right? The key thing is, what is the intention behind that? Like, where's your intention behind that? So, for example, people are amazed. I can do retreats, 7-day long retreats, and I'm working 8 or 9 hours a day. Plus I'm doing private sessions, for example. But I'm not tired, because the intention behind it is coming from a place of, it's coming from my soul. It's not really coming from, like this talk, it's not really coming from the head. It's coming from a deeper place, right? So that, there's nothing wrong with working. It's the intention behind it. It's the intention behind that activity. And most of us, we're just running around like with our head cut off like a chicken, I'm sorry to say, but it's a little bit like that,
Yeah.
Even among very spiritual people,
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I feel it in us for sure. Like, it's, right, we're conditioned to believe that we have to control everything. And if we do this and do that, we can control everything. And you can see it in society now, and in various levels of awareness, people have various levels of awareness. But even, I feel it in myself when we dip into the videos about 5G or whatever. I just want to get out of that right away. Like, I feel the best when I'm on my mat, just praying to feel pure love and be of service. Like, that's just that when I return to that, I think this is where my focus needs to be, because I also feel the temptation of, we need to control this, and we need to stop whatever, like stop the vaccine and run away and find a place to hide. And so, maybe you could speak some more, Andrew. I love what you introduced about, thinking about where we're at as a collective, about where we're at with the coronavirus. And I think there's so many different levels of awareness, right? But there's a lot of feeling of resistance. Maybe you can talk about, like, what is this, knowing that this is a reflection for us, like, what is this here to teach us? And maybe you can kind of get further into this idea, because people may understand it at various levels, and some people may not understand it at all, of like, how do you not resist? Like, how do you how do you sink into this true state of who you are? Like, how can you step back from this? If you know what this reflection is, like, how can you take that type of action instead of the resistance that we've been taught? Maybe you can talk a little bit more about what we're being invited to step into here.
I think it's very deep. I mean, I think we're touching something very, really deep. And it's what you get to face at the moment of your death if you haven't cultivated your soul. Right? You realize that everything that you've done in your life up to that moment, of the moment of your death, you can't take it with you. Do you understand what I'm pointing to here?
Yeah.
So the underlying fear here, what's motivating everything? First, we have to understand that this whole thing has a higher purpose, of course. Right? It's being orchestrated at the collective level. I mean, it correlated with the Pluto-Saturn. Maybe some of your viewers don't know, but I've been working with astrology for many, many years. I'm an evolutionary astrologer. So this virus correlated with the Pluto-Saturn conjunction, which are these, Pluto is the soul, actually, in evolutionary astrology. But it's the greater soul of humanity, I would say. And Saturn is structure, so structures. So at this time, there was this collective breaking down of the old structures. So that's what we're seeing at the collective level. It's just obvious of all these different structures that are being broken down. So and then people's individual reactions to that. But we have to understand that this is being orchestrated at the chi level, at a much deeper level than individually we understand. Okay? Yeah. So if we all step back into the soul perspective, where we had a bigger view, we would understand that. Okay. So what was the next part? So it was the question. I lost track of the question.
What we're being invited to see, and maybe how not to resist, if that's part of the path through.
No, but we will resist. I mean, that's just the nature of the personality. So all I would say is just be conscious of that resistance. And take that as gold, because when the resistance comes up, so what does resistance feels like? It feels like you're not flowing. So let's look at it at chi level, right? It means our chi is not flowing. It got stuck, So this is a great opportunity for everyone just to look at what sort of reactions they have, for example, to this whole vaccine thing, like what's your reaction to that, right? And then to feel that inside your body and try to feel the familiarity of the feeling. Like, so how many times have I had this feeling before? Is this a feeling of me being controlled by mummy and daddy? Is it my fear of death? What is it? What is this fear that's being risen from this, right? And be really curious about it. Like, instead of like engaging with it, be curious about it and bring presence to it. And use it as an opportunity to get free of that particular pattern. That would be my deep invitation to you.
Yeah, we're getting a question. I think you kind of just answered it, but I think I'll repeat it in case it kind of prompts anything more. Because it was kind of a question I was thinking about too, but Amy's asking this one. Is there a middle ground of observing what's going on without resisting but asserting our free will?
Oh, absolutely. I'm really glad that she's brought that up. I mean, so this is what we come here to master, right? Is this, we come here to master this physical dimension using our five senses, okay? And we come to integrate our immortal self, our spirit, into that. So we need to bring these two things together. What most people do is they split, they take sides. And what we're seeing in the world right now is the material science view of life, the paradigm of life. They see that as truth. It's like, if it can't be measured, it's not true. Okay. Yeah. That's the science view, right? And then on the other side, you have the religious view, which is like, it's a little bit mean, but I'll say it's like blind faith. Okay. Right. Okay. I'm not on either one of those. Okay, I'm on the chi cultivation. I want to have a relationship with the life force. I want to actually find out how the life force creates this whole incredible thing, and I want to start to align with that life force. So for me, self-empowerment is aligning with the chi field. And so, as Amy says, there has to be a middle ground between spirit and matter. And that's what a human being is. A human being, in the Tao, they say, the Tao created heaven and earth. Heaven and earth creates humanity. So we are a child of heaven and earth. Heaven means the formless spirit, and earth means the form. So we have that within us. We have a physical body, which is form, and we have a soul, which is, formless, right? And our job is to bring these two things together and to engage in the world. We're not here to leave it, And so, yeah, this is the big challenge. This is the challenge, right? And so it's a great question. And yes, the answer is yes, we have to do that. I mean, we are part of the solution, because everything that we evolve and change within us, humanity, that affects heaven and earth. It's not like heaven and earth is above us. We're a treasure. We're part of it, And so anything that we resolve within ourselves, any aspect of heaven and earth that we start to integrate within ourselves, that filters out into the collective, and it helps everyone else. So we're all on that together. We're all trying to integrate heaven and earth within us. Right? Yeah. We're all trying to do that. We're all trying to integrate spirit and matter, And what we do is we take sides. We start, like, oh, I want to take this side, or I want to take that side, because it threatens our belief structures, And that's what you see now, is like, everyone's got this certain belief that, oh, this could kill you, and we can sacrifice ourselves and save everyone else, There's very materialistic view, right? And from their point of view, it seems totally logical, totally real. So it's pointless trying to give them the other perspective. The other perspective is, you can't sacrifice anything to save someone's life, because the soul decides when someone's going to die or not. It's not decided by the personality or someone else. But a materialist wouldn't understand that at all. It's a completely different paradigm, right? You understand?
Sure.
You get the idea?
Yeah.
So there's no point in taking sides. What we have to do is integrate all those different sides within us. So everything out there is just a reflection of that deep imbalance inside of us. And I think, to me, what this is showing us how real our spirituality is. Like, how integrated is it? How integrated is it? And most people are realizing, well, it's not so integrated. I'm not so. I'm not as on such a high vibration as I thought I was.
Right.
So that's the key. So I think that's the great gift in this, is that we can all start to get really real about our level of spiritual integration, spiritual matter integration. So I love that question from Amy. I think it's spot on.
Yeah, well, we've got a script right here, which is just being tossed out the window as we speak.
Of course.
So
it's a great question. It's great questions.
I have two questions.
Sure.
And maybe I'll scrap one, but it comes back to your earlier point about intention, it seems to me.
Yeah.
Whereas, like in our case, like we have very kind of material challenges or true things that we're facing in the material world. Our daughter has been hospitalized 3 times since November with respiratory issues. So there's that kind of level of, like, as a father, I'm like, all right, I want to understand what's going on. Why is this happening? And are there pieces to this that are related to some of these bigger things that are now coming to light, say 5G and whatnot, and trying to kind of understand if there's any kind of parallel there that could help us then kind of determine if, like, on this material level, if this is like, maybe we need to go somewhere else, where that's not as prevalent. So there's that part of it, but I can sense in me, there's various intentions at play. One is like, I love her dearly. I want her to be safe. Another one is like, I'm terrified of dying. Like, and I don't want to be in a field that is promoting that, and so there's like, it seems like underneath everything is this fear of death. I'm running around the house with sanitizer, cleaning things, maybe every 3 days, I'm like, just go into this, like, I got to start cleaning, and I'm just doing everything. And it's from a place of like really trying to control. And it's like, I'm witnessing this, but I'm also, I also do it. So it seems like it comes back to that point of intention. I'd love for you to talk about that. And also maybe we could then get into this fear of death, because I think underneath all of this for everybody, we must be feeling that. And you just pointed to something really, really immaculate, which is that the soul has that is not kind of the mind body's choice, but there's a much higher thing at play there that we can surrender to and find peace and freedom now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just watching a series on Netflix. It's called like The Mind or something like this. And there's an area there on psychedelics, you know, and there was a guy there who had cancer. You know, he had a very, you know, he could have died. He had lymphatic cancer, and he took part in the trial with mushrooms, you know, because he had these, after he was cured, so-called cured, you know, remission, his cancer went into remission. It was a very serious one. And he was having all these thoughts and, you know, anxiety about death. You know, will it come back? Will the cancer come back? Which happens to many cancer patients. You know, he took the psychedelics and had the experience of his soul, and from that moment on, he never had fear of death because he sort of experienced his death with the psychedelics. You know, so this is you're absolutely right, Stephen. At the core of everything is that. You know. But I want to address something that's really important here. I'm not saying that we shouldn't live in a world where there's no vaccines. I'm not saying that. Definitely, we don't need to be injected with animal material, you know, which is, you know, so what I'm talking about is our reaction to that. So from my perspective, yeah, we should be doing away with 5G. I mean, we should be doing away with so many things. I mean, there's so many things that are just not, I mean, just look at, I mean, my God, where I live, you know, the rivers are clean now. You know, they used to be murky. They're clean. You know, the stories in China, you know, the atmosphere above Wuhan was clear. Over Italy was clear. You know, I wrote an article about this. So Mother Earth is just like clearing up, you know, there's so much cleanness happening in Mother Earth, right? And we forget how much we depend on her, on Mother Earth, because she's giving us everything. She's giving us life, you know, and this is why we get so angry, so mad, because on some level deep inside, everyone knows this. Everyone knows this on a deep level. No matter how materialistic you are, you know that your life depends on life, on the mother, you know, and the son. You know, we need that, right? So, of course, I'm not saying we shouldn't live in a world that's much more harmonious and much more peaceful. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that our attitude towards it, we have to be really, really careful. This is really important that everyone should really, really take into their heart. I'm actually thinking of doing a global type of meditation about this, because it's like we have to develop this compassion. We have to develop this neutral place inside of us to all of this fear and control. And, you know, because if we start resisting it, we actually increase it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we start focusing on it. So there's a subtle balance here with being informed. Once we're informed, when we say, oh, I don't need that, right? But then don't fight it. Okay, this is really, really important. Don't spend your energy on it, you know. You know, focus on your chi, you know, focus on your energy, right? Because you have no control over that on some level, you know. It's what we do have control over is our choice in the moment. Okay, and I really love that you were so vulnerable and opened up about your own fears, Stephen. I really, really respect that. And thank you for opening up about that. I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your, you know, just being human. You know,
you know, it really resonates with me, Andrew, about where to have our focus right now, because I've certainly been in both in places and infinite parts in between about where my focus has been.
When you have a daughter, my God, you know, I mean, of course you're afraid, because you have someone that is beyond precious, you know, so of course.
On that part, you know, what I feel like I've been, you know, we're here to experience in part, right, as the creator. And I feel like having Sophia has given me such a wide access to every emotion and permutation of love and fear and beauty. And like, I was just feeling it this morning, you know, when I feel into that humanity, the kind of what we've gone into through with this fall with her and everything else. Like I've had such a wide range of experience of emotions as a result, you know, and it's so beautiful, even though there's been fear and, you know, all of it, like it's so beautiful. So, you know, I was feeling into what you were saying about our focus and I feel like one of the messages that's really sitting with me right now about what to do right now with this reflection is that really like feeling into the new reality that we want to create, you know, like what is it in me that I want to create, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that, like putting our focus there and what that could be like for an individual and the collective, like stepping more into inviting ourselves into this like deep yearning and love inside of us to create, and that being like one way we could take this energy forward, you know, instead of resisting, maybe like focusing on what wants to come, what world we want to live in, what we want to create. Like how can we do that?
Yeah, I think it's actually very simple. we just have to see that we have heaven and earth within us. We have a part of us that's unconditional, that's flowing, and a part of us that's not flowing and is conditional. And to be okay with that, and to start to be honest about that, honest that we have feelings inside we wish we didn't have. And instead of trying to do something about those feelings, it's like allow the soul to, because the soul is loving all of this, you know, it's loving your resistance.
Yeah.
And it's loving your greatness, and it's not choosing one over the other. This is really important to understand. So our personality is very conditioned. You know, it's just its nature. It can't help it. But what you can do is you can look at your conditioned nature and just see it for what it is. It's either expansive or it's contracted. It's that simple. It's either, you know, more yang or more yin, you know. And so instead of like taking sides, what I always suggest is just like everyone should just start practicing the inner smile. So it's like, okay, so I've got this fear, and I wish the world was a better place, and I wish my daughter wasn't in danger, right? And so there's certain chi patterns that go on when you feel into those things. And then your job, I would say, using your will, is to see that you have those chi patterns. And Stephen, both of you are already halfway there because you're honest. So I would say, number one, self-honesty. Mm-hmm. Without self-honesty, nothing can change. Okay. So that's number one, self-honesty. Okay. I feel like shit when I hear someone talk about vaccines. Okay. Now, instead of like putting all my chi out there and trying to fix it out there, okay, what is it in me that gets terrified about that? Okay. And maybe it's the little boy or the little girl in me that's absolutely terrified. It doesn't feel safe. Okay. I don't feel safe. Okay. Did I have some experiences? You know, most of your listeners, so I'm hoping, have had some type of spiritual opening or awareness. Let's bring that in as truth and claim that, and see if that part of me can embrace these other parts that are fearful. And we're going to use our energy in a much better way, right? And then actually what happens is we start to realize that those limitations, actually, they have chi in them. They have chi trapped there. We can draw that chi back, reclaim it, bring it into our life, and use it for our spiritual cultivation, to cultivate our soul, to cultivate that part of us that's more neutral. This is the key thing. We have yin, we have yang, but we also have the third aspect of the life force, neutrality, the yuan chi. And this is what's not known in a lot of traditions. There's this underlying neutral chi, you know. And so that's my invitation to get honest about these patterns that we all carry them, and to embrace them, to not fight them, but to actually integrate them into ourselves, because actually that's what we came here to do. So you're actually here at this time, Stephen, with your daughter, terrified that she might be hurt. That is part of your soul's growth and awakening. That is perfect for you right now to integrate whatever it is that you need to integrate in your life. I would say that without a shadow of a doubt, that it's absolutely perfect for you. It may not feel perfect, but my understanding of my own life is that everything that ever happened to me was perfect on some level, you know. Yeah. It's just that we're not conscious of it, you know.
Yeah.
And it can be very glib to say, I would never say that to someone who was abused, you know, or something, and really in a lot of pain. I would not say, oh, it's all perfect. I would actually validate what they're feeling, right? But for most of us, when we have to realize that there is something within us that's never been traumatized. This is really important to understand. We have something inside every one of us that has never been traumatized. That's the soul. So once we validate the feeling, it's almost like that's it. You know, it's like, if you validate it, you know, in a perfect world, that would have never happened. But I validate it fully, and let's move on. You know, let's move on. Let's stay with that part of us that's never been traumatized. So self-honesty first. Second, just withdraw trying to change the outer world, you know. But once you feel inspired to, then you can go out and change the world, but you're neutral inside, you know, you're not attached, you know, you're completely neutral, right?
Yeah.
You're completely neutral. You're not charged, you know, you're not triggered. You're neutral. And then you can make change. It's sort of a strange thing, you know, but it's true. Only the neutral can actually go out and change things. That was a long answer.
Great.
I hope it's clear for people. Are we having any questions come in?
Yeah, we are actually. I could two so you'll get a little soundtrack. This will be nice. Two very similar questions. I'll read them both. But one is, my fear is not death, it's suffering, and making sure I have fulfilled my soul's purpose in this life. And how do I refocus for the final stage of this existence? That's one question. The next question is similar. I also feel exactly like that. No fear for death, but heaps of suffering within currently. Not feeling inner freedom as I have felt previously. It's kind of lost once again now. I also wish to make sure to fulfill my soul's purpose of why I am here, whatever that might be, while having this human experience.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm not sure what the question is. Is there a question there?
Well, I think they relate to, so the experience is not, the fear is not around dying, imminent death, but around, gosh, I feel incomplete. Like I'm not fulfilling what I'm really here for. How can I be clear about that? How can I give myself to that? How can I surrender to that? Kind of exhausting myself within the feeling of my mission, my purpose.
I was thinking about it from what you just said before, Andrew, actually, about like how for Stephen, about how what he's experiencing right now is right a part of his soul's purpose. It reminds me of when I came to you and I said, Andrew, I want you to help me find my soul's purpose. And you focused me on like what exactly was happening in my life right now and how that was my purpose right now.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if that relates to what they're asking, but I do think they're saying that their fear is that they won't live their soul purpose. And how can they realize that right now? How can they kind of redirect themselves right now to that? And I wonder if it's related to this, like being present to your own experience. But I want you to feel into that question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say in any one moment when you choose love, in that moment you're fulfilling your soul's purpose. In any one moment.
Sometimes we get into, I know for me, I don't know if you relate to this, Linda and Lourdes, but I've gotten into my head about my purpose or, my calling and what's my mission here. And I think a lot of us feel, right? We came here for this, right? I think we came here for this time. So there's this deepness within of calling us to serve, to help the world transition, to help others. This is what I feel. And so I felt this desperation at times of, what is that supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? And I don't want to miss it. And then, but recently, largely with your help and Alex's help, I'm feeling a lot of peace around my mission in my daily experience, just like being called to love in my daily experience. And I'm less focused on the macro kind of trying to figure it out. But I think we all have that in us, that because we came for this, we want to serve, we want to give. So there's that trying to find our soul's purpose, right? And the Jinkies are one path to that, right? That you guide people down among other paths. But I think this idea, she says, exactly, I feel like I'm here for a very big purpose, but I have no idea why I'm here, So maybe you can provide some direction or comfort or guidance to people.
There's this there's this way that the mind kind of latches onto that notion of a purpose and says, all right, I must be here to build some huge business or change millions of people's lives. I mean, I experienced
knock down all the 5G towers.
That's right. It's got to be that. Whereas maybe it's less about kind of creating some projected picture that is grand and kind of parallel to the world and how the world kind of teaches us to think, whereas maybe it's more moment to moment and unfolding of, like what you're saying, giving ourselves to love over fear, love over.
Yeah, this is a great question. I'm really glad we're having this conversation. I'm really grateful to the person asking the question. So, because I really feel like that this needs to be explored. So, like, purpose really has nothing to do with what you do. That's number one. It's about who you are. It's about your beingness. It's about your ability to trust your own uniqueness, I would say. To trust that, how can we say this? It's like there's three doors, I would say, that open. So the first door is self-honesty. You have to be honest that we have these feelings we wish we didn't have. And if you use the first door, self-honesty, and start to explore the feelings inside yourself that you wish you didn't have, that's the first door. That opens the door to the heart, I would say. Self-honesty. Second door is trust. Trust that your life is how it's meant to be, with all of its pain and all of its joys and all of its expectations, is to really trust it. The trust is what opens the door to the soul. And if you do those two things, I mean, the last one is surrender, which is where you completely surrender, and that opens you up to the divine, basically, right? But for most people, it's enough to open to the soul, because that is what we'll actually take with us when we leave, So my answer to this person is to validate all of those frustrations and worries and fears, whatever it is, but to get really clear, instead of focusing outwards, start to get really self-honest with yourself. What feelings, like that fear that you have that you won't fulfill your purpose, okay, go into that fear. It's a very real fear. We all have it. I know I have it. I'm sure you guys have it. I mean, it's just I would say that's coming from the soul, that fear, I would say. The fear isn't coming from the soul, that's coming from the personality. But the soul's intention is for us to actually complete ourselves. So that's where it's coming from. It's coming from this desire of the soul for us to complete ourselves. And what our personality does is it translates that into fear. So I would say it's a genuine need that we all have to complete ourselves, right? And the only way to complete ourselves is honesty. Without honesty, it's impossible. We have to be honest, right? And as soon as you're honest, like, in your relationships, right? When he triggers you, oh God, I feel like shit, I want to blame him, right? So that's honesty, right? So, right? right? It's honesty, right? So that's the first thing, honesty. And then once you're honest with yourself, then you go to the next level, which is trust, which is like you're at that level, I would say, Teresa, because now you're trusting your day-to-day life. So, and I see it in you. I've seen the change in you since we spoke. There's a light coming out of you. You're more like spontaneous. You're not thinking so much. You're more just letting your heart speak, basically. So that trust has opened up your soul level, I would say. So.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I don't want to dive into that some more, but I don't want to go too far. But did you have something you wanted to?
No, I'm feeling the same way you are, which is like, I mean, there's a spontaneity to this conversation, which is really, really alive. But I feel like we've kind of reached a nice point of like talking about what we've talked about, and that there's some other things we should get into.
Sure.
Before we close.
Sure.
I think, does that sound good to you?
Sure.
Yeah. I
love how you two. You're so sweet with each other.
Oh.
Wait till she gets off camera.
I was
Andrew.
thinking about when Stephen and I, well, one thing I wanted to say for anyone who doesn't understand that process Andrew's talking about, like it's so alive for me right now because we went through this process starting last July and then with Stephen and I, you know, so it really is like, really, I was going through so many patterns of anger and cycles and just being able to be honest about that wounding and really feel that wounding that was behind that was such a gateway to me for letting go of some of those pressures and expectations and fears and opening up to the daily experience, both in my own myself and my relationship with Sophia and with Stephen. So it's it makes so much sense to me now, but I think for a long time I didn't understand what it meant to really be honest. I thought I've been honest. I've looked at myself so hard. Like, why can't I understand this? And then there was this next level of just of like really accepting and having compassion and love and like for me and everyone involved in my, you know, story about it. And then just like really releasing into the emotion of it.
And that serves the whole, Teresa. That's because that will ripple out into the humanity collective.
Yeah.
Because we're all dealing with that. We're all dealing with our own resistance. You know, we're all dealing with that. That's what it means to be human. So that's what the Taoists talk about, heaven and earth. We have these earth aspects, like our resistance, like our resistance to the flow of our soul. But we're meant to resolve those. We're meant to go into them, you know, and we're meant to resolve them because that gives us a sense of completion. That's the important thing, I think. The important word is completion. So it's not about achieving something because it's about completing something. Like, so all of us, we have to complete, right? So for example, if a woman doesn't have a child and she has a child, that gives her a sense of completion, right? And it's the same at our soul level. Our soul wants us to complete certain things. It wants us to learn certain things. So I call that completion. And you know when you've completed it, like, you know, like for me, like I'm currently working with, you know, a lot of collective fear inside of me. So when that happens, when I start to go into that collective fear inside of me, and I start to love it and accept it, I start to complete something inside of me for the collective. And I can feel that is starting to complete, you know, but that doesn't mean it stops, you know. It's like you go on to another level, then your trust gets opened up to another level, and then you have another completion, right? Life is like that. It's a series of completions. So that's the other thing that I would recommend for your listeners is to look back at your life, look back in your past, because a lot of these incompletions are in our past, and they're like chi that's stuck. You know, the Taoists call that false yin, false yang, because yin turns into yang and yang turns into yin. And when it moves like that, we have something called life, right? So what happened in our past is we have all these little events that are like frozen in time. The chi was not completed. So what we can do actually to open up to our soul's purpose is just to look back in our past and go, okay, what's incomplete for me? When I look back there, what am I neutral about? And what has a charge, either a yin charge or yang charge? And can I bring my soul back in that time, into that moment, and start to reclaim that energy, you know? Or consciously say, I'm going to let it go, you know? Or I want to go back in time and I want to resolve whatever that was. Because for sure, it will keep coming into the present moment, right? So we have to let it go, completely let it go and say, okay, I forgive myself, I let go. Or we have to go into it and really look at it and say, okay, what was life trying to show me at that time, you know, and complete it for ourselves, you know. And that will help you in the present moment, because the more we can do that, the better, you know.
Absolutely. You know, we talked, I don't want to get too heady, but we talked to our listeners that we'd be talking a little bit about the Jinkies. So maybe you are talking about it at many ways.
That's all the Jinkies. Yeah.
I was going to say.
I mean, what's great about the Jinkies is it gives you these, it lets you know the shadows that you're holding for humanity. You know, it lets you know there's something called the core wound in the Jinkies, which is fantastic. So I talked about mine, you know, being anger and violence. So I carry that wound, the collective wound of violence. and abuse and anger. So all my life, you know, I've had to deal with that wound. You know, it's a core wound inside of me, and it's always there as a tendency because it's collective. You know, I'm not going to put my hand up and say it's healed because it's a collective wound, and it probably won't be healed until we all live in peace and we all stop blaming each other. You know, so I would say the Jinkies are an incredible tool to take a look at your own, you know, what your core wound is. It's wonderful to look at that. There's another place in the Jinkies called the purpose, which will give you a sense of this sense of being. Remember, purpose is not something we do, it's a sense of being that we're here for. So for example, in my case, I carry the Jinky in my purpose of forgiveness, understanding and forgiveness. And so you can see that gift coming through my understanding of the life force. You know, that's the gift. And the city is forgiveness, you know, which is part of my mission, is to bring that forgiving energy of the soul into life, you know. So it's wonderful. You start to feel that, you know. And so that's why I had so many challenging relationships in my life, because it was very hard for me to forgive, you know, very hard. So, so yeah. So the Jinkies are really just this wonderful tool, a pointer, I would say, you know, a pointer. Richard Rudd, the developer's good friend of mine, he always says, you know, the Jinkies, they're not the truth, they're pointing to the truth, you know. So, and the truth is the soul, you know. So we all come here to complete our soul, to manifest our soul's wisdom and joy and, you know, and creativity into the world, you know, whatever that may be. And it's a mystery, actually. We that's the other thing that I want to say, is that our purpose will unfold as we become more honest, as we become more trusting. And so as we become more honest and trusting, our purpose will start to unfold. I guarantee you. It will. The more honest you are with yourself, the more trusting you are with yourself, your purpose will unfold from within yourself. You'll feel it. You'll feel it. You'll have a sense of, the sense you'll have is a sense of dignity. That's what I want to say. It's like if I died today, would I be okay? You know, would I feel good about my choices and what I did? You know, and that's dignity. We call dignity. You know, you know? And so you have to ask yourself that question, right? Okay, so what if I died today? What would feel incomplete, or what would not feel like dignified for me? You know, so I ask that question a lot. You know, if I died today, you know. And then, you know, I also have these experiences where someone will write to me and say something that, you know, that I touched their life. And in that moment, when I receive that feedback, you know, that I actually touched someone's life so deeply, in that moment, I can die, you know, because I know, oh, I completed my destiny in that moment. You know, you feel it, you know, you feel it inside. You feel like, wow, you know, it's like I contributed some love into the world here. And in that moment, I just felt like, oh, God, yeah, I'm complete. You know, at this moment, I can go. Same when I'm doing body work and someone is having this incredible, you know, they're releasing out of their body something really powerful that's going to change them. In that moment, again, I feel like, oh, I can die in this moment, because you feel this sense of completion. You probably have it with your daughter sometimes. You'll say something to her that's spot on and the right thing, and in that moment, you just feel like, ah, it's perfect, you know. I'm sure you've had those experiences.
I was going to say, that's exactly what I was going to say when you were saying that, because, you know, I went through so much painful cycles of resistance with her, related to my own childhood wound, I'll just say. And then recently, so much of that is lifted, and there's so much beauty and like, so, and it's like, and that's like, for the people worried about their purpose, I guess that's something hopeful I would just share, that like, I was so in my head and projecting about that in a very like ego linear, like I have to do this thing kind of way, you know, and it's not that that's gone, but it's so much clearer to me now that it's just in my daily reality. So that completion that happens is like, Sophia will say something to me, or there's just a moment of like recognition, or there's a moment of pure love, or there's a moment like of total presence, and and that's it. And then that's it. And that moment is there that you're talking.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Isn't it great?
Yeah.
Isn't it great? It's like when my partner is going through something really tough, you know, and I can hold that space of love for her. Oh, it feels so good, you know. It feels so good, you know, where I'm not involved, you know, I'm not engaged, I'm not in my own stuff. I'm just in this place of pure love. It's the most wonderful feeling. The most wonderful feeling. And that's what I want to bring to the collective. If we can all just be more in that place of holding space for each other. You know, I think this is what, you know, this is what I want to do, a global meditation around this, of holding the space of presence and love, and taking allies, you know, using the sun, using the earth, tuning into the energy body of the sun. That's the other thing that I teach, is how to have an energy body ally. You know, so part of the Taoist training is to resonate your energy body with earth, with the sun, with the planets, with the cosmos. So you don't have to do this on your own. You resonate your energy body with the earth's energy body. So that's a training that I offer. That's part of what my school offers. What I do with Wujigong is about training people how to align their energy body with nature's energy body. And that is amazing. You know, when you start to do that, you know, it's really amazing. You feel so centered because you're connecting in with nature. You know, the Taoists say anything that has a body comes from the Tao. You know, so a sun, a star, a planet. You know, and when you align with that, so human beings, we have a body, so that means we're a treasure. You know, we're a treasure to existence. So yeah, that's my main work these days, is just teaching people how to align their energy body with Mother Nature's energy body, and start to cultivate their chi body, their energy body, their soul. Yeah, that is my main work. That's my main mission. It's what I love to do. And because talking doesn't cook the rice, it can point, you know, but in the end you have to practice. You know, we need a practice. You know? So that's why I teach this thing called Wujigong. You know, because it's like a treasure from the Tao. It's an incredible form that everyone who practices it, their destiny speeds up. Their everything starts to shift. You guys have to learn it. You have to learn it. It's incredible. You know, it's incredible.
What is it exactly?
So, you know, you can learn it from Amy, because Amy's in California now. She's in Landers, I think, right? So she can teach it to you. She's there. Yeah. It's a form of Qigong. It's a living form. And when people do it, the soul starts to open up inside. It's just something very magical. You can look on my website, and there's all the information there. And I've been teaching it for the last 15 years, I think. So.
And one little closing question about the Jinkies.
Sure.
A couple good questions here.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just kind of describe a little bit about what it is. Like, what does it mean if somebody engages with the Jinkies? What exactly is the content that comes back?
Oh my God, it's such a huge system, you know.
Then specifically, what is a siddhi?
Okay, so a siddhi is like soul quality. I would say it's something coming in from the soul. So the Taoists would call that a virtue. So those are like high states of consciousness, like you know, like when you hear of Indian teachers and gurus that have these special powers, that they were traditionally called siddhis. You know, they can appear in two different places at once. So the siddhis all have these incredible names. So Rich has done this amazing job of naming them. So like timelessness, forgiveness, rebirth, inspiration, rapture, you know, all of these incredible words, you know. So that's one of the great things about the Jinkies, is you can read these words and they have a frequency with them. And you can start to resonate, and you start to see, oh, my soul's frequency is forgiveness. Oh, and the shadow is intolerance. Oh, okay. So when I saw that, when I first saw the Jinkies, you know, which was about 10 years ago, and I saw mine, you know, intolerance and forgiveness, I was like, oh, yes, that's my purpose, Jinky. And yeah, my relationships up to that time were the field of intolerance, you know. So it was wonderful, you know. So it's wonderful. It's a little shocking as well when most people come to the Jinkies, you know, and they start to, these shadows are named, they're brought into consciousness. That is actually great service. So that's the great service of the Jinkies, is they actually make you conscious of these shadows. They make you honest about your shadows, like I was saying, you know. And so, you know, I encourage people to look into it. But again, don't get too heady with it, you know. Try and get honest with it, and you'll go far with it. Plus, Richard has a wonderful online course. It's called The Golden Path. It's very reasonably priced. I learned everything from that course. I just literally dived into it and took everything from that course, and that's how I sort of I wouldn't say I became an expert, but I became an expert in my own life, you know, in my own shadows. And that's how I can serve others, because I understood myself in a way, you know. So, yeah. I don't know if that answers the question, but the basic teaching is every shadow contains a gift. That's the basic teaching. So it's a transformational path that everyone walks, and it's about discovering your higher purpose. You know, that's the main purpose of the Jinkies, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, Amy asked a question. I think you may have addressed this, but how do we see our shadow as a collective gift rather than something we need to avoid or fix in ourselves? And I wonder if you can address that in
yeah, it's a great question
level, but maybe as a collective level too, about like these shadows that are emerging. Like, how can we see them as a gift to, and something we don't necessarily need to fix, but something we can rebirth something else into, you know, like alchemize. So yeah, she said, how do we see our shadow as a collective gift rather than something we need to avoid or fix in ourselves?
Right. Yeah. Beautiful question again. So I guess let's answer it with another question. Okay. Okay. So why do you have that? Do you think?
Yeah.
Why do you have it? There's some intelligence put that inside of you, right? So this comes down to what I said again about trust. So like we have to see that we're not a victim of these things, you know. We're a victim of them while we're unconscious about them. Then we're a victim of them usually. But once we become conscious of them, like I said, honesty is the first step. Once we're conscious, oh, I have these patterns, then you have to sort of go to the next level, which is trust, and say, okay, some intelligence, the intelligence of life, placed these patterns inside of me for a reason. For a reason. Right? So that's how I would answer that. And not to take it on at the personal level. So not to have your ego engage with that, not to have the part of you that goes, oh, I wish I didn't have it, or, oh, look at me, I have this, I've got to take this on for the collective. No, it's not like that. It's like, this is very important to understand this. It's like a surrender, you know, like you have to surrender to your destiny in a way. Like so many of us, we're trying to make our destiny happen rather than surrendering to it, rather than letting it unfold. So why do we have these patterns? Like, what intelligence put them in there? What intelligence put that in there, in us? Life did. Life wanted us to have that experience. Like, why are we born into the family we're born into? Right? Right? Why has your daughter come into the family of you, the two of you? Because you will be teaching her something, and she will be forwarding on the next generation. She'll be resolving anything that you don't resolve in your life. She'll be resolving for you on some level. You know, life is always doing that. It's always trying to bring more and more harmony and balance into life, you know. So in answer to Amy's question, number one is, it's not personal. It's not personal. It feels personal, you know, that you have these things in your life, but they're not personal. They're like animals don't have this, right? Animals don't wake up and go, what's my purpose, right? It's only human beings that do that, right? You know. So we have this will, this is why will is so important. This is the wild card in spirituality, by the way, is our will. We have the will to choose in moment by moment by moment, right? So the rest of nature doesn't have that amount of will that human souls have. So we are a treasure. We have this ability to resist the life force or to engage in it, you know. So that's my answer to Amy, is one, like, realize that some greater intelligence put it inside of you, and to trust it and to be honest about it, that you have it, you know, but then not get engaged with it, like not put a lot of attention on it, because life will bring it up for you in your relationships. You don't have to fix it, you know. It's like it will happen anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's like we spend too much time thinking about it rather than just living it, you know. So that's my answer to that. Great question, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. How much time do you have left, Andrew?
I have plenty of time. I'm easy. I'm doing my favorite thing here is answering questions. It's great. It's so easy. You're making it so easy.
Okay.
I think there are two final questions, and then maybe a little way at the end where you can kind of invite people to connect with you in whatever way works for you, stuff like that. But I think the first of the last two questions, maybe if you want to ask more, fine. But a lot of people sort of have an inkling or a vision or themes that they feel would be more in place after whatever we see unraveling here unravels. Some people give that a kind of a title called the New Earth or an ascended civilization or whatever. But I'm curious as to you, from your perspective, from your clarity, what kinds of things do you see emerging on the other side of this, what's happening now, unraveling now? Not knowing that this is sort of like the beginning of the end, the middle of the end, the end of the end. But in general, when you sort of kind of see whatever that might appear as, do you have any kind of thing to share along those lines?
I would like to think that people will become a lot more conscious about what they put into their bodies. That would be number one for me, I think, because the way we live right now is so unconscious. The fact that we're polluting our planet, that's the first thing, is just to see that, when we all stop this crazy, wherever it is we're going, that's what I would like to see happen, is that we all slow down a lot more, that we start getting a lot more conscious about what we put in our bodies. My great wish, I actually did a post on this, is that, can you imagine if no one on the planet had to worry about survival anymore? What sort of world that would, that would be my great wish, is that we would suddenly create a universal, not even money, just from this moment forward, no one will have to ever worry about survival and having a roof over their head and food ever again. That would release such a wave of goodwill and creativity, because that's the basic thing that's driving everything. Is this fear that we won't survive, that there's not enough money. And we in the West, we're lucky compared to so many millions of our brothers and sisters are thinking about survival every single moment, walking, 10 miles to get water and these types of things, So that would be that I would hope we would have a lot more compassion about that we're all in this together, and yeah, that would be, I can't predict what would happen. I just don't know, but I have wishes in that regard.
Yeah.
That's nice. Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The last thing I wanted to ask you, I know that you're very focused on self-love, and maybe you can offer as a final point to listeners about what are some self-love practices that people can use at this time to support themselves and others through this transition.
Yeah, great. So number one is claiming the truth of your open-hearted experiences in life. Don't see those experiences as just a feeling state. Claim them as the truth of who you are. That's self-love. Okay. And use that as the North Star in your life. Use those experiences of when your heart was open as the North Star. And then when moments come when your heart is closed, don't make it a polarity to that open place. Make it a pattern that is just longing to be loved. Does that make sense, what I said?
Yes.
So don't make a duality with those two things. Claim the truth of your love. It's funny, but my partner, I want to bring her into it because she's had some very beautiful heart-opening experiences recently, and she had a very powerful experience of a heart opening. And, until you've had that, it's really hard to understand it, But once you have it, you need to claim it. Mm-hmm. You have to claim that as the truth of who you are. And then when these patterns arise, you do your best to be honest, you have them, and to stay with the patterns for as long as you need to. Just don't try to fix it. Just bring your presence to it. Bring the memory of your love to it, and don't believe the pattern, Don't believe it, as truth, because it's not. It will change. It will change, Doesn't it always change?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So that for me is self-love. Is number one, realizing we already are that. We're already free. We're already loving, but we're not always experiencing that. So if we're not already experiencing it, it means we just have work to do. We have to transform those things until they do become love again, and understand that is an ongoing process. That's the other thing. Very important, Teresa. Very important. It's not a destination. It's a process. Get this idea of you're going to get to a place where all your problems are solved and you're going to be enlightened one day. Just give that one up. It's a process. Life is a process. And the more you recognize that, the more you'll enjoy your life, and things will actually flow easier. It's a process. It's not a destination. Life is a process. So those are the two things I would say. Claiming the open-hearted moments as truth, and seeing that life is a process. Actually, three things. And when the patterns come up, claim the truth of your experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. My God.
No, maybe we can close, Andrew, by you can tell people how they can reach you and. So the main way is through my website. I have a website called wujigong.org. You can just look it on Google. It's number one up there. You can go there and look about that website, and you can contact me through that website. And I also have a counseling service that I do where I work with people with inner alchemy and with evolutionary astrology, and also the Jinkies, So I sort of combine Jinkies and evolutionary astrology. I find the two together very powerful, because I can look at what the soul is attempting to learn and then filter it through the Jinkies. So I do a lot of consulting work with people, and generally people don't need a lot of time. Usually 1 or 2 sessions with me is enough. Then people get clear about what their soul is attempting to do. So that's the main work. Those two things. Yeah. Well, thanks for asking.
We'll put a link on the chat below this.
Thank you.
Teresa and I can attest to the potency and joy it is to work with you directly.
Oh, thank you, guys.
100%.
Thank you, guys. And I'm so thrilled at what you guys are doing. I think you're great interviewers, both of you. I really like what you're doing here. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's really a great idea.
Feels good.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Yeah. Cool. See if you can get, Amy, right? Do you know Amy and Charlie?
Yes.
Do you know those? Yeah. Oh, so see if you can meet up with them, because they're in California now,
Yes, we're in Nevada right now.
But,
you're in Nevada. Okay.
Amy and Charlie, and we've been chasing each other around, trying to meet for a long time, actually.
Because if you get to be with Amy, you can learn the Wujigong from her.
Yeah.
So that would be great. Yeah.
Charlie reached out to me yesterday, so we're in touch with
Good.
Maybe we can meet. We both have.
I can't wait until we can all get together and just celebrate together. I can't wait till we can start to travel again and do that, right?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, guys, I love you so much.
We love you, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me this platform. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
All right. See you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.